Well, as Ethiopia continues to make strides in power issues, we want to expand the conversation and take an inward look to Kenya. And right now we want to bring in the CEO of the Brand Kenya board, Mary Luseka, joining us live here on the studio. Many thanks, Mary, for making time to be with us this afternoon.
Thank you, Aby. I'm happy to be here.
And interesting times for Africa, for Kenya. We've seen the country go through a very, should I say, volatile year where we did have a prolonged electioneering period. And this sort of dampened the image of Kenya on the global stage. How big a dent was this for Kenya?
You know, Aby, actually, at first it looked like it was dampening Kenya's image. But what Kenya did after the various challenges we faced this year is actually what has made us rise up and show the world that actually an African nation can be democratic, can live by rule of law and its constitution, and emerge successfully. Because to be honest, from the beginning of the year, the first time we had such a protracted campaign season where governors were campaigning, MCAs, the president, and eventually we ended up having an election that was nullified.
Sure.
So that was shock for everybody. And even us at Brand Kenya, we were wondering how then we will be able to steer the narrative positively for Kenya. But I'm really proud of how Kenyans behaved because despite that nullification, we maintained peace and we stuck with the rule of law, complied with whatever it is the Supreme Court had guided us, and we emerged successfully.
All right.
So that's something to celebrate. Yeah.
So what sort of roadmap can we look at now that we are going into a new year, and how do we repackage Kenya as a destination, not only for investors, also for tourism, and even other aspects around healthcare? What is the game plan moving forward?
You know, right now, actually, the game plan has been unveiled. His Excellency, the President, has launched this strategy called the Big Four strategy that is looking at growing manufacturing to contribute to GDP by 20%, and at the same time, affordable housing, universal health care, you know, and so on and so forth. So for us now as a branding agency, if you look at the first pillar, which is manufacturing, the focus will be how do we grow the manufacturing sector by, one, making sure that we invite investments in manufacturing, but at the same time, that whatever we produce here then is leaving Kenya as products that have been made in Kenya to the rest of the world.
Yes.
So we play an important role as Brand Kenya Board in making sure that, one, we brand those goods and services so that when they go to shops out there, the whole world is able to see this is a product that is made in Kenya, and they prefer those products because they are superior and they have high quality.
All right.
Then the second thing would be, we would play a role in making sure that we position Kenya as the place to manufacture your goods in, so that if you look at the African continent, there's really nobody who has taken up that position where they are the manufacturing hub. You know, that's how China grew, Taiwan, you know, Vietnam, and it goes on and on. So this is our opportunity. The African continent is virgin market, and we need the African countries to begin to outsource their manufacturing in Kenya. And we'll be playing a big role to position Kenya correctly so that we attract this kind of opportunities.
All right. Yeah. Let's talk about the spending budget in terms of branding the country. How much are we looking at in terms of achieving these activities, actually achieving these goals as a branding agency?
You know, branding is not a cheap thing because beyond developing the brand promise, you've got to communicate it, and communication is expensive. Other countries, if I could use examples of South Korea that has been very successful in branding itself, or even coming home to the African continent, looking at South Africa. South Africa spends every year an equivalent of about 10 billion Kenya shillings in communicating itself. And you know, you realize that such countries have seen that branding is extremely important, because if you want people to see you, you cannot then be winking in the dark. People have got to feel you at points of sale. If it is goods and services, people have to go to a shop and see actually Kenya is here. So in order to do that, definitely we will require adequate funding levels. And currently, we are really happy that government has taken branding seriously. Last year, we got 500 million towards branding and communication, but that's not enough really if you compare to the 10 billion that South Africa is spending, or any other country in the world. So we have put together proposals which we are pushing through government. I know in January there will be a focus on supplementary too, and then we're also doing our budgets for 2018-19, and we are hopeful that branding will be given focus.
All right.
Yeah.
And looking at the examples you've raised, of course, South Africa has been very actively and aggressively marketing its products. And is it a question of coordination with the other like-minded agencies towards achieving a common goal, or why isn't Kenya getting it right, really?
Beyond actually the budget component, coordination is also very key, because you have to go out with one message. And that is why I'm very happy that now we have one strategy that is very clear, and we are all making sure that we align to this big four. Without a clear strategy, then you find that agencies are in different directions because everybody is focusing on their area. So this is one opportunity for us to all coordinate, align, have one message that is going out there. And I'm really, really grateful that the National Treasury is making sure that all of us, in our budget proposals, we have taken care of the coordination element, the synergy. So this is not going to be something that will continue into the future.
Right.
We now have a new beginning in as far as coordination is concerned. Yeah.
And finally, what's your sentiment for 2018 from a branding perspective? Are we looking at a better year or just a usual average year?
Oh, I see a beautiful year for Kenya. I say this because, one, we've emerged successfully from this, and we've demonstrated resilience in our safety and security systems, because Kenya is still considered very safe, a place to visit. I see us growing our ease of doing business, looking at the targets that we had given ourselves to be able to get to number 50, and that should be able to continue. And then I see renewed focus on Kenya. Already, you can see that the whole world is interested in how can they support the Big Four strategy. Ambassador Amina has been meeting leaders from different parts of the world who are already keen and asking, how can we contribute? Our own minister, Aden Mohammed, is already meeting people. So there's a lot of excitement from the world in helping Kenya achieve its goal, but most importantly in partnering so that then it is mutually beneficial. So I see the economy growing at a much higher level than the 5.5 that we did last year.
All right.
Yeah.
Many thanks, Mary Luseka, CEO for Brand Kenya Board, just talking to us on some of the interesting strategies they have put in place towards marketing Kenya and, of course, trying to lure more investments into the country. Well, we want to wrap up the program now with a look at how you've polled on our Twitter poll. And we are asking you today, how best can Kenya better brand itself to attract more investors in 2018? Well, we've run out of time, but we encourage you to continue tweeting, and let's keep the conversation alive on social media, and we definitely appreciate your continued support and interactivity on our platforms. That's where we leave it at. My name is Aby Agina. Coming up next is our Swahili team, which will be bringing for you the day's news from across the country. From that's the end of the show for now. We will be linking up on Christmas Day on Monday. Do have yourselves a lovely weekend and take care, drive safe, and avoid getting into trouble.